Well, the first to acknowledge that, you could have built this kind of thing 7, 8 years ago. It needed to be, more needed to be known about the data landscape to build the kind of solution we now have.
Hi, Ben Reed from Elasticity. Talking about a lot of the maturation of the industry from where we used to be with these large enterprise solutions that were dealing with small sets of data, were very expensive, very time-consuming to implement, to where we are today, which is much more closer to the business user and very on-demand and plus multivariate analysis. In that transition, it seems like there's a lot less emphasis on consulting than there used to be, where you have droves of people come in that obviously were expensive, but also were that sort of interface between what the application could do and the needs of the customer. Can you tell me a little bit more about your opinions on where consulting, that sort of translation in an ongoing capacity, whether it's consulting or adoption or whatever you want to call it, that relationship with the customer over an extended period of time, not necessarily implementation?
Yeah. So I think, at least speaking from this story, we have a very straightforward way of looking at that, which is that at some point organizations are all going to tap into sources of data that are not necessarily inherently supported by the system, but the system has the capability to bring that data into the mix, in which case a consultant may be brought in who has the domain expertise around that data or source of data and can bring it into the mix with all the other data that the organization wants to see and can help basically in the process of converging that in. The system itself has to allow for it. In our case, it is a system that allows for it, but there may be sources that one needs to bring in that are unique, more esoteric, very specialized, based on what the customer wants. And in that case, a consultant is brought in to actually help with the process, right? And to help not just convert it in, but then ultimately make sense of the insight.
I think, one of the trends here is to try to minimize the number of consultants, I think, necessary. And I think there's two types of consultants you could talk about. One is the IT consultant to make all this technology work, and the other is more the data scientist type of consultant. I think on the IT side, I think there's a lot of opportunity for consulting right now because these technologies are so new and so complicated and so hard to use. But I think as time goes on, companies like Adapt, which are really trying to productize it as opposed to, let's say, Cloudera or some of the distribution vendors that do a lot of this consulting, I think over time things will become more productized and that IT consulting will decline. And I think that's just natural as the industry matures. But I think also from the data science perspective, I think that's another interesting area where there's incredibly high demand and not enough supply. I mean, the true Zainabs, and we have one at our company, his name is Ming Sheng, I mean, they're extremely hard to find. So I think that's an opportunity as long as these insights are not obvious to folks. But I think that's also what some of these guys are working on as well, is to try to make that easier to see, easier to visualize, even for the non-data scientists.
I think one other point about consultants is that one of the things that consultants bring to the table, especially for organizations that are not used to having whatever the specific domain expertise that consultant brings, is typically process. So especially in the data science world, there's not a whole lot of process because people don't understand what a data scientist should be doing. It's like a cool job title, but there's not a whole lot of people are like, oh, I got a data scientist, now I'm a real company. And that's what we do. But there's actually a process that goes around it. And one of the things that consultants bring in that particular case is understanding the process and bringing the process into the organization in such a way that allows the organization to not have to learn as they go. So that's actually a really big deal. The learning curve, moving that learning curve is sometimes way more valuable than the actual cost of the expertise brought in.
Although I would say if